Hello, here are some really cool plugins and maybe more importantly, absolutely free plugins that can be very useful for drum mixing or any type of mixing. In this video, we're going to go from a drum mix with just basic levels to something that has a bit more processing happening. I'm going to start talking about the Sonimus SonEQ and the Plugin Alliance BX Subfilter and the Metric Halos Thump. So here's some drums. I've gated the snare drum and the kick drum. And here is the Sonimus SonEQ. The SonEQ is a 3-band equalizer with a drive section. Presumably it's based on some type of Pultec tube EQ ideas. And it's actually really useful and it sounds really nice. So let's try this on the kick drum. It has fixed settings for the boost and attenuation on the low end. So let's put this to 30. The mid-range is sweepable, so we can adjust it freely. And with the high shelf, there's a 6, 8, 12, and 15 kilohertz fixed frequency choices. I can also add some drive to the EQ. Next up is the BX Subfilter, and this plugin probably needs its own video tutorial because it is a little bit more intricate than other resonant-based filters. However, you might just want to use the presets here and scroll through these to start off with. It doesn't really have a mix knob, but this low-end knob here either increases or attenuates the amount of bass. And the tight punch sets a frequency range. After that, we have the Metric Halo Thump, which is also a resonant filter. However, this has 2 oscillators that you can set with the attack frequency and the sustained frequency. So it sounds like this when you just turn it on. We will have a look at some other saturators later on in this video, but I'm going to start off with the Voxengo tube amp. It only has a few parameters. It's got a drive and it's got a bias, which, to simplify things to quite a bit, essentially emulates the amount of current that is sent to the tubes. It's got a low frequency cutoff filter and an output gain, so we can control and balance the input drive. I'm going to submix the drums so we can have a look at some bus processes. To do this, I'm going to go to Options and then create a new auxiliary channel strip. Call that drum sum, or whatever you want to call it. That has input 1 and 2 at the moment, but I'm going to set that to bus 2 because I'm not using bus 2 for anything else. And then I'm going to take all of my drums, including my kick track stack over here, and I'm going to go to where it says output stereo out, and I'm going to set that to bus and bus 2. Now all of my drums should come out of this return here. Instead of working with the individual drum hits, we can work with the entire kit, And I'm going to start off with the Tube Saturator Vintage. And that's a bit of a mouthful, that name. But here it is from WaveArts. Open it up like this. It has a drive, it has bass, mid, and treble controls, and it has an output. And you can also drive the EQ. So let's just play around with this for a little bit. Another tube saturator, although with a slightly different flavor, is the 1566 from Shatterglass Audio. In this scenario, I've sent the signals from the kick drum, the snare drum, and the overheads to the 1566, where it sits on a return here, and it sounds like this soloed. And then we can blend it in with the rest of the drums. And this way we can have quite a lot of distortion in the SGA 1566 and then blend it in with the rest of the drums. Another excellent saturator and distortion plugin is the Audio Damage Fuzz Plus 3, which is this one here. And I'm going to add this to this mix by adding on an additional room microphone here. So I'm going to start by turning it off, and then also add this Cole's corridor microphone to this drum mix. Now we have a little bit more ambience, and this Cole Rooms microphone sounds like this. And with the Fuzz Plus on, it sounds pretty amazing. So let's now try and blend this into the rest of the drums. What's really cool with this plugin from Audio Damage is that I can set the frequency and, of course, the amount of distortion and the feedback, but the frequency also allows me to really dial in the sound that I want. And I certainly recommend that you go and download this from Audio Damage. They have also a little bit of a crazy compressor called Rough Rider, which is also free. To this drum mix, I'm also adding some parallel compression using the exquisite Klanghelm MJUCjr. And I've sent signals from the kick, the snare, the overheads, and from the corridor microphone into this, and it sounds like this. It only has 2 time settings, fast and slow, and the difference is the way that the sound is this. So a little bit depending on what type of sonic sound you're looking to get to the drums, you have some options here. A little bit more thickness and a bit more beef to the overall drums, and especially to the snare drums. Finally, I want to show you 3 plugins that won't change the sound of your mix or your drums, but they are very, very useful. Start off, we have the MAAT MAAT 2-bus control, which will show you balance and phase relations. It'll also allow you to switch to the mono and the difference. Mono is obviously mono, and difference is what's actually going on the left and right side of your mix. So that's obviously very useful. We'll see how it translates over to a mono speaker. After that, we have the TBPro Isol8, which allows you to switch off and on frequency ranges of your mix and also solo them. And this is obviously immensely useful to make sure that there's not something funny going on in one of the frequency ranges, and also maybe to identify any problems in certain frequencies without having to go back and check individual channels. Finally, we have the Youlean loudness meter. And although loudness metering is probably more of a concern after you've mastered your track, being aware what your tree peak and LUFS values are when you're mixing can certainly be helpful. If you want to know more about LUFS, both for broadcast and for streaming services, I recommend productionadvice.co.uk, which has lots of excellent resources about the subject. Okay, thank you and good luck with your mixes.